Hello, my friends. Sue Paulson here, your magnificence mentor. Welcome to the healing call of cancer. I had a number of cancer sufferers say to me, I just want my old life back. Well, let me tell you, I can relate to that statement. So let's talk about that for a moment. I came through surgery at the end of September in 2012. And they sent me home and said, all right, just now all you got to do is heal. Don't come back until you're ready for the follow-up tests and so on. So I knew I had a couple or 3 months before I had to darken the cancer clinic doorstep again. And actually I was quite relieved about that because I'd been through enough by that point. Well, the healing process was slow. And in the intervening time, as I was trying to regroup and reconvene my life and get back to what I had been doing before cancer and throughout cancer, bit by bit, things started to crumble. It was obvious by January that the relationship I was in was faltering and not going to survive. So there was the first blow. My relationship was gone, was over. I had no job that I could physically do, no job to go back to. And I had no place to live either, and no furniture to put in it. So things were looking a bit dire. Now, fortunately, I had been involved with a guy who was very supportive and very sweet. And even though we knew this relationship was not going to make it, he was not going to see me stuck. So he made sure that I had the wherewithal for an apartment to rent, and I could get started at least, and also furnished it so that that was not an issue. So that was a huge blessing and a lovely gift. But of course, in order to be able to pay the rent on the apartment, I needed a job. So that was the first thing that I started doing, was polished up my resume, and then I called in all my connections and, hey, who do you know that's looking for someone? And because I'd done sales for a number of years, I thought, well, I'm pretty good at that. I'm good at building relationships and working with people. So I'll find a sales job that will fund me, because a basic minimum wage job was not going to pay the bills. So I needed to work with my skill set and go back into that arena if I possibly could. Well, a dear friend came along and swooped in and said, hey, I heard there's a job opening over here. And I trotted in and convinced my soon-to-be new boss that I was up for the challenge, that I could take on this role and be a solid sales rep for him. So there was my job looked after. Well, I dived in. Little did I know that my body internally, I'd been re-engineered quite a bit. And there were layers and layers of healing that still needed to be accomplished. And the job I had taken on proved to be very physically demanding. Not only did it prove to be physically demanding, but you know what starting a new job is like, right? You don't know anything, and it's stressful because, and I want to do well, and so I found myself just stressing out about, well, I don't know this and I don't know that, and feeling worried and confused and upset, and every day was, oh, are they going to keep me on because I don't know if I'm picking this up fast enough. And in addition to which, it was very physically demanding because I was outside in the winter time and going from potential customer to potential customer, and the weather was nasty and the driving conditions, oh, you know. So it was tough. And there were days, many days in that first few months where I came home in tears because I was so overwrought. I was physically exhausted, emotionally exhausted, mentally exhausted. There wasn't much happiness going on whatsoever. So it looked like kind of an endless road. And when someone said, well, I just want my old life back, I'm thinking, well, yeah, that at least I knew what was going on in my old life. But here's the thing. I couldn't get my old life back because everything that I had come to believe about my old life, or maybe tricked myself into believing was okay, mostly wasn't okay. Most of the reason that I had been plunked right down and facing cancer was because I had been leading a pretty high stress lifestyle. I didn't realize it, but I had put a lot of pressure on myself for years and years and years and years. And if you read any of the studies on chronic stress, that's what can get you if you don't have the coping mechanisms to sail through and cut down your stress level and build up your kind of your happiness quotient. It's hard on the body, really hard on the body. And that's why I was in such a state, because I was not physiologically in any great shape to live a full life inside me, because there was so much stress that was covering up whatever good that there was. And so so I thought, so I mourned. I grieved for my old life, the pieces that I really, really liked. And I grieved in lots of ways for my old self, because there were so many things that had shifted and changed, and my outlook and my view was different. So all of these challenges and all of these struggles, I came to the understanding that, sadly enough, I wasn't going to get my old life back. However, my grandmother used to say, where there's life, there's hope. Well, I had life, as such as it was. It didn't feel like it was all that wonderful, but I was breathing. I got up every day and I went through the motions. So day after day, I slogged away and I slogged away, and I had a certain measure of success in my job, got a few praiseworthy comments about the job I was doing, which felt good. But deep inside, I knew that the job wasn't right for me. How did I know that? Because I had this gnawing new awareness in my body that it wasn't happy with what I was doing. And so I had come to recognize the symptoms of being too stressed, of not being able to deal with whatever was in front of me. So my ability to cope was low. So I began to think about, okay, I can only do this for a certain period of time. I can get myself to a place financially where I think I could manage to do something else that isn't so stressful. So 9 months later, I quit the job because I knew that I couldn't handle it anymore. It was too emotionally draining and way too physically taxing. Well, now what? Okay, you're not working. And I gave myself permission to just flat out take the rest of the year off, which turned out to be about 6 weeks. And I was determined in that time to figure out what my next move was, to give myself the break. And boy, did I need that break, because physically I was pretty much done. My body was exhausted, and it didn't hesitate to tell me. So it put me to sleep lots. And so I had more naps during that time than probably a baby has when they're first born. Well, that was a good thing. So what do we do then when we hit that point in time where we've had such a trauma in our lives, and our lives just crumble before us, and we and we do our best to pick up the pieces, but the pieces don't seem to fit anymore. That I will have this over here and I have this over here, but they're not going together, and it doesn't feel right to me. And if I learned anything over the course of going through cancer, I learned more about what worked in conjunction with my body and what didn't. And so the signals were wah, wah, wah. They were there. I was foolish if I didn't pay attention to them. So this time I thought, oh no, I'm paying attention. So how do I orchestrate this? Well, I drew on some coping mechanisms that everybody has access to, but I'm not sure that we see them as important, or that we realize that they're there for us as tools to help us through to the next spot, help us through to the next phase. So of course, one of the key tools is problem solving. Well, your ability to say, well, okay, this isn't working, so what might work? And to take things through to a conclusion after examining things from all sides. Here's the good of it, here's what's not so good about it, here's the benefit, here's what I'm going to pay in order to get this benefit. All of those kinds of things. The easier it is for you to problem solve, to move into that mode, then the higher the likelihood that you will find an answer, even if you don't know what it is at the outset, that the answer will be there for you. For me, it was discovering that I was much better to work from home. It was easier for me to put my skills out there and predominantly work from home and take on the odd part-time teaching gig outside of my house, but not a full-time job. I came to the conclusion that no, working full-time is just not there for me. And it irked me that I couldn't do it. It irked me that I wasn't up for it, that 10 years earlier, I had no problem working full-time, and now I couldn't. So it was a little bit of a bitter pill to swallow until I realized, well, Sue, that means you have free time. You have more time to do some of the things you've wanted to do for years. You never did. And oh, okay. Well, this might not be so bad. So I spent a lot of time problem solving and working through all of that. And of course, that meant that I needed to be in close communication with myself and understand what was most important to me now. I questioned my values. I did lots of journaling. I really focused in on what I wanted moving forward, not what I had, because not everything I had left behind was all that great anyway. So it felt like a relief to just say, oh, well, that wasn't working anyway. Why am I hanging on to it? So I was letting it go. Now, of course, along this journey, and there are times when it would have been helpful to have had a community of people who had gone through a similar thing, just like Alcoholics Anonymous takes people through from wherever they are to out the other side to some healing. And the people that they connect with have all lived it. So there's no surprises, and there's a recognition and a camaraderie that comes out of that. It would have been nice to have had that kind of group of other cancer survivors who were struggling as I was, but I wasn't in that arena. There wasn't one that I knew of, and I had been brought up to be fiercely independent. So I just thought, well, I'll just tough it out and go it alone. Thank goodness I had very dear friends whom I could have tea with and say, oh, I'm really struggling, or a shoulder to cry on, or whatever that looked like. And believe me, I shed buckets of tears in that whole time, just trying to stay the course, trying to get through one day at a time. Well, the closeness that I did have with those in my life who cared deeply about me, regardless of what my situation in life was, helped a tremendous amount. It really made a difference. The other part that helped me was I've always been a pretty flexible person. So if something didn't work out here, then I could more easily move. So flexibility and adaptability are key coping mechanisms. Let's face it, in life, period. That if we're so rigid and we have such tunnel vision, well, I can only go in this direction. There's not a lot of wiggle room in there. So we want to make sure that we're open to other possibilities and open to suggestions and saying, well, I hadn't thought about that, but maybe that would work. And so that flexibility kind of softens the hardness of the life that we're facing and helps us say, well, maybe all is not lost. Maybe there's a way here that I just haven't thought of. So that was one of those mechanisms, those coping tools that helped me along the way. And of course, ultimately, what helped me ease into that new life was when I chose wisely the things that began to work for me. I had a much higher level of satisfaction in what I was doing. I was much happier on a day-to-day basis because I was orchestrating what I wanted to happen next, probably for the first time in my life. It's not that I didn't always have a hand in orchestrating my life, but it always felt as if other people were weighing in saying, well, you should do this and you have to do that, and which I didn't appreciate, and it didn't work that well for me. But here, I'm the one creating the life that I most want. And this gave me a prime opportunity to do that. And of course, I began to realize, well, Sue, if you don't like what you've created, you can create again. You can change whatever it is that's not working. You might need to tweak it and so on. And just as if, I guess, similar to hanging a picture, you pound in the nail, and I don't usually measure, I kind of eyeball it. Oh, my son would have a fit. Mom, measure the wall. Well, that looks about right. And I put it on the wall, and sometimes I go, no, that's not quite right. Take it off, move the hook, bang, bang, bang again. So I have to tweak it, right? And then I put it on, well, it's not quite straight. So then I'm just moving it a little to the left or a little to the right, stand back. Oh yeah, perfect. This is good. So, but isn't that what life is like? I mean, we don't always get it the first time. Sometimes we have to go after it more than once and keep refining until, that's what experimenting is, right? And until there's this piece and say, okay, now I think I've got it. And that'll work until something comes along to just knock you off your pins and back you are to the drawing board again, right? But hey, life is like that, and that's part of the joy in life is that little surprise that comes every once in a while. And sometimes it's a really good surprise, and sometimes it's not such a good surprise. So, are you going to get your old life back? I wish I could say yes in some ways, but actually, I haven't found that to be the case. I guess I would say, no, you're not likely to get your old life back. And if you get parts of it back, chances are pretty good because you're different, because you have changed. Here's the main reason why I think you won't get your life back, your old life back, is because you've changed so much that chances are what you liked before, you won't necessarily like now. What worked for you before won't necessarily work for you now. So just be prepared for that and be aware that this is the prime do-over. This is the time when you get to decide, wow, what of my old life wasn't working? What of my old life got me in this place in the first place? And what can I do differently now to ensure that I don't need cancer to come calling again? that there's something that I've taken from this that's so meaningful and such a treasure that it will fuel where I go from here on in. Let's celebrate your new life. Let's celebrate where you're going next. Will it be hard? Very likely. Will it take some time? It did me, but you can do it. You're magnificent enough that you have the ability to create what works best for you. And I invite you to get on that, because if not now, when are you going to do that? Don't wait. Say, all right, in your own time and as it works for you, by all means. But start dreaming about, well, if I was going to create my ideal life, what would that look like? And then as you can, act on it little by little. And pretty soon you'll say, wow, pretty happy with my life right now. No, I don't have my old life. Yes, I'm different, but I love my new life. Until next time, take good care of yourselves. Celebrate you. You are worth celebrating. And we'll see you again on the Healing Call of Cancer. Oh, and if you're enjoying these videos, if you're finding them helpful, if you're finding them useful, please share them with others that you know who may benefit. You can always subscribe to my channel. And I also invite you to download my own app, The Magnificence Mentor. It's a free download from either Google Play or Apple Store. It's filled with all of the cancer videos that I've done up to this point, plus all of the Tea with Sue that I've recorded. So you can join me on Fridays for Tea with Sue as another opportunity. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.